Hey guys, I'm Tchadtv. I'm a content creator who makes fashion analysis videos. If that interests you, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out, it helps me to keep producing these types of videos. But on to the video. The goal of this video is to examine Charli's style and explain how it got from this to this. But if you guys have learned anything from my videos, you know that I see fashion as storytelling. So let's start with the story of Charlotte Emma Aitchison. Born in Cambridge on August 2nd, 1992, and raised in Start Hill, Essex, Charlotte grew up in a working class family with her entrepreneur and showbroker Scottish father John, and nurse and flight attendant Gujarati Indian mother Shamira. So London is one of the biggest fashion capitals in the world. It's home to Central St. Martin's, which produced esteemed designers like Alexander McQueen, John Galliano, Christopher Kane, and it also has London College of Fashion, which turned out greats like Jimmy Choo, and also the Condé Nast College of Fashion and Design, which so many people who actively work in the industry and are keeping it going came from this place as well. But not only does it house a lot of historical fashion institutions, which educate the people in fashion, but it's home to High Street, which is known as a shopping epicenter of London, but it's also a historic fashion nexus, much like Diagon Alley in Harry Potter. Alexander McQueen got his first fashion job tailoring at a store on High Street, and Vivienne Westwood and McLaren had a very popular shop called Sex, which was also on High Street, just to name a few of the very iconic shops there. Recently been reading Gods and Kings, The Rise and Fall of Alexander McQueen and John Galliano. It's a great book by Dana Thomas, by the way. And it does a great job of explaining how the cultural movements of London in the 70s, 80s, and 90s specifically were visualized using fashion sense with distinct subcultures of young people who were all somewhere on the pro and anti-Thatcherism spectrum. So those included the New Wave, the Buffalo, and the New Romantics. London wasn't the only place fashion was being reinvented at the time, but it was a huge hub of so many different forms of fashion talent and so much support from the young generation since their political systems were in great flux and the arts were starting to show economic value. And subsequently, were being funded way more than in past decades. Saying all that to mean, having this be the birthplace of an artist in the 90s already sets the stage for how one interprets artistic excellence and contributing to cultural influence. So to save us all a little boredom, let's cut forward to 2013. At the time, Charli wasn't putting out music that she claimed to be an accurate representation of herself. She hadn't yet decided which genre was for her, and was making heartbreak music based on experiences she hadn't even had. Based on this look she was curating, I would say she was striving to be taken seriously as an artist, which would make sense as a young woman who hadn't had any formal music training, nor had crazy connections in the industry that would boost her career forward without her own efforts. In 2015, on a red carpet for the BRAT Awards, Charli described her ideal wardrobe to be a cross between Cher Horowitz and Wednesday Addams, which was basically hipster at the time, specifically from places like American Apparel and Urban Outfitters. What I found interesting about her saying this was that simultaneously at this time, she or her stylist had developed this relationship with Vivienne Westwood, and she was being dressed by them for various red carpet occasions. I imagine that being from the UK enabled that relationship to begin, but this is a huge fashion titan with which she had a working relationship from the very beginning. I would think having such an iconic fashion house dressing her would expand her personal style outside of the purview of what people her age were expected to wear. But this brings up the topic of how Charli understood or didn't fully establish her identity as an artist. Since in this era she wasn't fully sure where she wanted to take her sound and what music she wanted to create, it was hard to know what was authentic for her to wear as a visual representation of herself. The name of the section of this video comes from a book of the same name by Maria McKinney Valentin that dissects the constant conflicting and overlapping communication and fashion choices we individually make. This book examines how choice, perspective, and intention are indubitably interconnected when analyzing fashion and looking to critique it. Making sense of how people decorate bodies means at least asking what they are saying about the context they choose to reference. Where Charli was stylistically at this point in her career is such a great example of how simply wearing the clothes cannot create an identity for you. This is a lesson that can apply to anyone looking to find their personal style. Finding out who you are and what is important for you to express precedes being able to curate a personal style. I'm saying this so explicitly because I find this hard for people to understand about style nowadays in this era of social media, showing people at younger and younger ages all the aesthetic options that they have. I find that people become visually stimulated by a style and then just try to kind of cosplay it without taking into account the philosophies behind why certain styles work for certain people. Unfortunately, because short form video doesn't provide the context behind the style and the subculture that created it, it's easy for people to see clothing pieces as either cool looking or not cool looking and negate the fact that they were designed with an intention of what it means to wear these clothes. And to concretely exemplify what I'm talking about, we can take a look at Charli's style change when she began to collaborate with Sophie. This is when Charli fully committed to making pop music with the inspiration of techno subculture. Raver culture grew out of the acid house music scene in the UK in the late 1980s and early 1990s. The term rave refers to an all-night dance parties where electronic music was played. By the way, I'm taking this from the lovely style encyclopedia that I purchased from fashionary.com. The identity markers of this subculture include the face glitter and jewels, colored sunglasses. We've got fat pants, shutter shades, candy accessories, crop tops, platform sneakers. The style is coming about because of the needs of the people within the subculture, what they like to do, the activities they like to take part in together. So taking a look at Charli's looks from this time, we can see the signaling taking place to reference the subculture and stamp herself as one of them. I think in this we can discuss the difference between appropriating a subculture and becoming part of one. Learning the social rules, understanding the nuances of the style markers, engaging in the activities, and frequenting the places the subculture interacts will make you part of the subculture. It's like coming into it with an intention of respect and an intention of appreciating who they are and what they've established before you've even joined. Going out of your way to respect that, it makes it a respectful exchange. As Charli comes into her sound and her identity as an artist, we see her still keeping some style markers of techno subculture, but begin to form her own look as her music begins to have this really candidness balanced by this incredible confidence in being vulnerable. So shout out to Charli's stylist Chris Horan. He's been doing a fantastic job. Not to take any credit away from Charli and her self-discovery, but of course when I say she's finding her style, I mean her stylist is finding her style. Just an aside on stylists, I find that the general public doesn't always know that stylists work with the artist and they're not these magical beings that can force artists to wear whatever they want to see them in. The styling job is actually really difficult in this way. Good stylists have very good interpersonal skills and ability to understand what their clients can't always put into words. Basically, they have to rely on intuition, but they also have to rely on visual knowledge and a growing relationship with that person to know what direction they should be taking their client in that coincides with the era of their work. So Charli obviously has her own unique style and path and subsequent career, but I'd be remiss to leave out the music icons whose images have shaped the public's understanding and acceptance of Charli's current style. The tone of Charli's music, and by extension her demeanor and style, is unapologetically misunderstood. By how she speaks in interviews, but also her lyrics, you can understand that she aims to do away with this idea that women have to be palatable and attractive and commonly liked, which many pop stars before her have also championed. And one of them is Kesha. What I loved about Kesha's persona and style in the 2010s was her shameless personification of the indulgence in romantic and sexual lust as a vice. She wore a lot of leather, fringe, various animal prints, textures, a lot of fishnet tights, combat boots, glitter makeup, messy hair, body paint. You guys know the Kesha look, right? Her image was an antithesis to the overly curated pop girl aesthetic that was so popular in the early 2000s. Embracing the taboo, explicit parts of adulthood made for a style that was attractive to many young teens and young adults. To go back even further, I would liken Charli's style to Gwen Stefani's. In the 80s and 90s, the underground techno scene became a safe haven for the nonconformists, and the ska, punk, and alternative styles Gwen Stefani embraced in her emerging career were seen in the same vein. Although she wasn't exactly portrayed as like a girl gone bad, she was very experimental in her style, sometimes to the fault of cultural appropriation. And that's not to downplay the impact of cultural appropriation, but Gwen Stefani's look and her massive influence shaped what alternative and counterculture aesthetics looked like in the early 2000s. Thus making Gwen Stefani's style that was so massively observed by the public rebellious for the mainstream expectations of a pop star. Honestly, I could keep going back in time and digging up more and more pop icons that created this path that Charli has stepped into, but I have to move on to the next chapter of this video. Okay, so I've already discussed Charli's relationship with Vivienne Westwood, but I want to get philosophical about Charli and specifically the BRAT era's effect on the fashion industry. So walk with me. And looks like these are all 2024 looks, by the way. These are all examples of Charli communicating this really dialed in gauche tone with an undercurrent of vast creative intention that makes it chic. It's not quite camp because I personally don't think it's tacky or ironic enough to be, but it's on the spectrum. Taking that into account, let's examine what's happening with Charli and H&M right now. So I think Charli is doing a kind of reverse marketing timeline for a pop star, because in recent years there's been this trend of building your career with the socioeconomic knowledge of your audience in mind, and therefore going into collaborations with the fashion brands that match that customer, and that is seen as a feasible collaboration. Usually people go from fast fashion collaborations and work their way up to the more high-end collaborations as their career gets better and their audience widens. But I see Charli and the way she's navigating the fashion world to be both a representation of and understanding where the young public is with caring for wealth signaling, but also the power of celebrity and where they are with the parasocial relationship. Buying into the lifestyle of BRAT means to not care about the prices of your clothing pieces and where they're from and what those brands you're wearing are narratively saying about their customer. And she has marketed her style to be so ambiguous in nature that she gets to say where her audience should buy from while not relying on the brand to represent her status to the public. This is directly opposing this idea that's been floating around for the past couple of years that celebrity influence is dying in any way. I think celebrity influence is actually monopolizing, because artists like Charli can go from Mugler to H&M and still be a representation of both. I think it's pretty big in terms of like shifting how pop culture is relating to the fashion industry. So tell me if you guys are noticing the same thing. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.